welcome into this edition of Off the Front Porch, our weekly podcast exploring the Southern experience. My name is Tony Ballman, and once again, you are with me as I travel the highways and back roads of the American South, connecting with some of the most fascinating folks whose stories make living here such a truly spiritual experience. Our travels this week find us in Beaufort, South Carolina, in the heart of the Palmetto State's Lowcountry. Beaufort is South Carolina's second oldest city, second only to world-famous Charleston, which sits about 70 miles or so to the northeast. Beaufort is in the heart of South Carolina's Sea Islands, a string of more than 100 barrier islands resting along the southeastern coastline from South Carolina to Florida. These sea islands were home to indigenous people groups thousands of years ago, and over the millennia they had become a magnet for European colonization. As a part of that exchange of cultures across the Atlantic, these sea islands became home to a rich tradition known as Gullah Geechee culture. This cultural phenomenon was born from the struggles of West Africans who were enslaved and brought against their will to this continent by European settlers. Theirs is a complex culture informed by tragedy and triumph, yes, by music and food and spiritual traditions that are as vibrant and beautiful today as they were hundreds of years ago when these enslaved people sought hope in their memories of their homeland. Perhaps no one has more beautifully and vibrantly depicted the day-to-day life in the Sea Island cultures than the artist born not too far up the road in the tiny rural crossroad known as Gardens Corner. Farming community then with a history all its own stretching back at least 300 years. This gifted storyteller has deployed brilliant color and masterful depiction of everyday life in the Sea Islands to become one of the most celebrated artists capturing the Southern experience on canvas. His credentials and accolades are too enormous for me to list here in this segment, but the language of his Lowcountry paintings are now central to the mission of a new initiative that has dawned this spring where we find ourselves sitting today for this edition of Off the Front Porch on the campus of the University of South Carolina, Beaufort. The Jonathan Green Maritime Cultural Center was dedicated in late March of this 2026 as a place, according to its mission, to celebrate and preserve the rich maritime heritage and cultural traditions of South Carolina's Lowcountry and the broader African diaspora. I am joined here at this magnificent facility, this incredible incredible museum and incubator for creativity by its administrator, Dr. CLIETT Long, and by its namesake, world-renowned artist, Jonathan Green. Thank you both for having me here today.
Thank you.
Well, let me start off by being a bit of a fanboy, okay? I am sitting here probably 5-6 feet away from Jonathan Green, knowing that back home in my living room, there is a framed print from an exhibition not too long ago at the Morris Museum of Art in Augusta, Georgia. It is signed in silver Sharpie by Jonathan Green, and it is one of my most prized possessions. I see it every day when I come in from teaching, and I'm reminded of how much I love the South Carolina Lowcountry. And then I go to my bedroom, and I see a glass frame. And in that glass frame is a simple canvas that I picked up a few years ago at the Charleston Art and Wine Festival, Wine and Food Festival. I was in the park, and I was enjoying all the delicacies, and there was an opportunity to go into this little area of the park and sit there and attempt to replicate a Jonathan Green painting. And I was sitting there, I got my canvas, I put it up there, and I'm doing my best. I'm trying to paint this woman with a red bonnet. And all of a sudden I look to my right and I see Jonathan Green. And my hand begins to shake. And then Jonathan Green starts walking toward me. And I'm like, oh gosh, he's going to look at what I'm doing. Not only did he look at what I'm doing, Jonathan Green, sir, you said, do this, do that. And you took my brush and you brushed onto that canvas, on that simple canvas, and then you signed the back of the canvas. And so what I did is I got one of these like glass frames, and it is hanging where folks who see it can see not just my pitiful attempt at replicating one of your paintings, but your signature on the back. So yes, I'm a bit of a fanboy of Jonathan Green. So it's a privilege to be sitting here in this space.
Thank you, Tony. It's a privilege hearing your enthusiasm. It just it enlightens the room again.
Well, I'll start off with you, Dr. Long. First of all, tell me a little bit about this place, this Jonathan Green Maritime Cultural Museum. Why is the mission of this place so important?
It's very important because it's a major gap in world history. And Jonathan has been intentional about painting in series that record and preserve the history of African maritime history, art, and culture. And he's used the lens of the Gullah Geechee because, of course, he was born in the Lowcountry, and that's what he knew. But he knew he had a wider mission to record the African diaspora, not just in the Atlantic world, but throughout the world. And so this center is important because in here we have the largest teaching collection of African diasporic art in the world. We have the largest repository of literature that focuses on African maritime art, history, and culture in the world. We have over 6,000 volumes of literature on this topic because we've been studying it. We've been business partners and friends and traveled the world together for over 35 years. And in doing so, we have this vast collection of art and artifacts that tie together the African diaspora throughout the world in themes such as basket making. We've been matching the patterns that come from Africa because Africans explored the seas thousands of years before any other culture. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, there was a large outmigration to other places as indigenous people. So Africans didn't traverse the world on being enslaved. They traversed the world as teachers and propagating knowledge, languages, food,
music,
agriculture, music, art. And so we see evidence by going, and I've been to over 219 port cities to document the African presence.
So much of the narrative that we here in the United States hear and study and discuss about the spread of African culture from West Africa to the Americas. I was off target in saying what I said, basically, because I mean, is that correct? I mean,
well, you're not off target because you're speaking from common knowledge or commonly spoken knowledge, and that's what the center here is devised to train scholars differently and to understand that what happened here in the Atlantic world was very late in human civilization. And what we do know is the cradle of civilization was Africa. Mm-hmm. And that Africa existed for thousands and thousands of years before the Western culture.
Right. And
so this center is intended to show and to teach scholars that we have to include the earlier ancient cultures in our stories because we start in the U.S. in the middle of history as if it was the origin story, and it is not.
So the origin story, I mean, as I hear you discuss it, to me, as someone who loves history and loves civilization and the rise and the evolution of civilization, I'm intrigued now. So if I were a scholar, if I were someone who was set about where I was going to come in and I was going to do some research on that particular area of scholarship, you have the resources here.
Absolutely.
At the University of South Carolina, Beaufort, at the Jonathan Green Maritime Center to be able to meet the needs of those scholars.
Absolutely. and the archival, repository, and the scholarship, the literature that supports it. Because I think it's commonly known that Africa was the cradle of civilization.
Yes.
And then we had many civilizations prior to the British colonization of this part of the Atlantic, which was late. And yet, we insist on starting it there. And we know better, but we don't practice better. And so this is a center to teach us to practice what we have buried in our common knowledge in the U.S. But the rest of the world knows.
As I was driving to Beaufort this morning, I did not fully intend to be enlightened the way that I have been. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Let me turn to you. Is this something that you, people know you as an incredible visual artist. Is this something that you became fascinated with, or is it something that came to you later in this process as an artist?
My fascination starts from being a child. To have been raised on a farm where we were self-sufficient people in every aspect in the 50s, middle 50s. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, even as a child, the work that it takes to operate a farm is not something you would just bring a bunch of enslaved people to and operate. So when I learned first about the rice fields from my grandmother, and then I learned as a interest historian, scholar, and I started putting the pieces together and realizing very fast, especially with my experience being a student at School of the Art Institute of Chicago in the 70s, and having to see and witness the world through the arts and literature. Every aspect of it, from opera to play to symphonic music to African culture, sculpture, I realized very early that it is impossible for any bunch or group of people that is deemed enslaved, to put in the rice fields. It's impossible. It could never happen. And that's when I really became fascinated with the largest man-made earthen sculpture on the planet, larger than the Great Wall of China, larger than any monument, those rice fields that you can see from the moon. Without any modern technology, it still can't be repeated today. So how can we think in terms of enslaved people doing that? So there, I had talked with Dr. Long.
The technical and engineering part.
Dr. Long and I have had many conversations, and she has said to me, well, Jonathan, we can't say that until it is proven. I have always believed that we had African contractors that came and put in the rice fields, created a lot of these cities, not only here, but around the world.
Right. I'm excited that this mission exists, particularly here, and I don't know what your relationship is with the International African History Museum, that's African American History Museum that exists in Charleston now. But it seems to me that the Lowcountry of South Carolina really is becoming a magnet for a more enlightened, more scholarly examination of the role of African Americans on this continent.
Well, but we are focused on the African diaspora.
Okay.
We're international. This is an international center because it's the first in the world museum focused on African maritime art, history, and culture, the first in the world.
Right, yes.
And so our mission is quite different from an African American museum.
Right.
Or any museum.
Any museum, any maritime museum, because in the maritime museums, Africa wasn't included. So that's a gap there. And in the African American museums, maritime wasn't included. So we're building that bridge internationally to think about trade, economics, commerce, because that's why people were exploring from Africa, out migrating to trade. That was the economy. So African market women were the engines of trade and economics on the continent of Africa. That's been documented. So that's a major thrust of what we're doing here is the African market women. And we have an opera that's in production now that will be traveling about that story, along with the Jewish femme souls who were also market women. And Jonathan Green's art has always portrayed African women as market women.
Yes.
Baskets on their heads. You see them busy
Always
in different
working.
productions of flowers and produce and taking them to the market by water in Charleston. So that was very intentional of him to preserve that. And then my part was to go around the world and interview market women, photograph market women, buy from market women, and look at the maker side of market women. They create and then sell.
Yes.
Now, in our culture, and I'm sure of course it exists in other cultures around the world, the role of women tends to have been marginalized and tends to have been underplayed, downplayed. But what I'm hearing from you is that women were an essential part of the economic part of African culture.
Well, and still are in the world, because the African market women also traversed the world and taught other cultures, women, how they could
speak about the sculptures
money
that you've seen all over
Oh,
the world.
yes. So the world of trade and economics honors market women throughout the world. And when I was traveling the Nordic countries, as I always travel by ship, because that's the natural way to get to port cities, in every port in Norway, Sweden, Denmark is a major statue dedicated to African market women. And I was calling Jonathan from the port saying, it's a 20-foot statue of a market woman from Africa here in Denmark. And it was because they know the value and they're paying homage to the African market women. If you're on the continent of Europe and you look up at the buildings, it's the African market women all around the buildings. In Liverpool, I witnessed the city hall, because Liverpool was wealthy from trade and commerce. It has market women from the indigenous cultures, African culture, and the commodity that they made the money using this intellect. They put the commodity next to the women, or holding corn, or holding different produce.
And one of our pride and joy was discovering the market woman of the Statue of Liberty.
Yes.
The market woman of the Statue of Liberty. Okay, my ears are open. My mind is open to, please educate me. Because I feel like a child right now. I feel like you have opened up a box to me that and showing me something I had no idea existed. Because I fancy myself a bit of a scholar or at least a student of history, and I'm hearing something now that is so fascinating to me, so original, so foreign to me, but also very exciting.
Well, thank you. What we have tried to do is put the scholarship with the travel experience, with the longevity of his preserving this as a visual artist. And the culmination of that is here. But the market women were the reason you don't hear about it, because now it's called an informal economy, but recognized as trillions and trillions of dollars. And it's a brilliant way to operate, because they don't want people counting their money. These are the people that have supported the educations of students, children, and given to institutions, built institutions, quietly. And we see it every day. We see it in churches, the women. Those are market women that come together and put a bazaar together.
Another great example is men build cities.
Yes.
Women create places that they have built to live in.
And cultures.
And beauty.
Mm-hmm.
I want Dr. Long to speak about the Statue of Liberty, because when we made this discovery, it just blew our minds.
Well, France, for the 100th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, wanted to make this gift to the United States. And they designed a woman, market woman, that is in all the other ports. And New York was our major port city at that time. And she was designed to have chains hanging. And the U.S. at that time rejected that. We don't want to put anything prominently up with these chains. And France, so the agreement was France would do the statue and the U.S. would build the podium for it. And it was much lower. And France insisted, well, we're gonna signify that this woman has been enslaved. And so the chains are now around her feet, but the podium was built higher, so you cannot see it. Oh. But you can see it on internet. You can see it on images of but at human level, you can't see it. But that was what she was intended to do, as we have discovered market women throughout the world.
I literally am having chills as I'm sitting here hearing this story. It's amazing. And here in Beaufort, South Carolina, in the Lowcountry of this home state, for us, for me, for you, it has the potential to be a global magnet.
It's already that.
It's already, and it always has been.
We have been working on this project for years, and as I was traveling, I was making partnerships with universities and other cultural organizations around the world. So again, the world knows this is new to U.S. and Beaufort. But let me say something about us being in Beaufort as well. It's the University of South Carolina systems president, Dr. Harris Pastides, wanted to honor Jonathan with the museum, but he intended for it to be about his art. And as we were talking that through, he said, would you allow me to pick the campus? It's a systems project, but he wanted it on the right campus.
And flagship.
The Research One institution. So he came back and said Beaufort, because of Jonathan's birth and him growing up in Beaufort County. But we're serving the system. And so it was natural to host it here, but our mission is much larger. We're just hosted here. And they recognize the value of this message very early, of the visionary. And then the current systems president, Dr. Michael Amaritis, he did not have to continue it, but he did, because he understood maritime. He was born in Greece. So he came from a maritime culture. So it's a natural.
This is incredible. This is, as a matter of fact, we have spent the time for this first episode talking about this incredible center, and we could talk for 2 hours about it, I'm sure.
We could talk for days.
I tell you what, may we wrap this first episode and then come back and talk a bit more specifically about your art? May we?
Yes.
Well,
let me take a bit of pause here. This is part one of an incredible conversation that we are here at the Jonathan Green Maritime Cultural Center in Beaufort, South Carolina. This is a global center for the scholarly study of maritime culture, specifically the
African
maritime culture, and specifically the market women. And that's so exciting. Thank you for listening to this particular episode of Off the Front Porch. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Dr. CLIETT Long and one of my absolute heroes, Jonathan Green, thank you for visiting with me. Listen next week. We'll have another edition from here at the at the Jonathan Green Maritime Cultural Center of Off the Front